Hello and welcome to the AWS webinar, The Power of Media in Religious Organizations. My name is John Lai, and I'm a Solutions Marketing Manager with AWS or Amazon Web Services. Today, I'm joined by John Porterfield, webcast producer at Harvest Christian Fellowship. I believe he goes by JP. We're going to spend the next 30 minutes speaking about how religious organizations, including churches, Bible study organizations, and media companies catering to houses of worship can leverage video and complementary services such as machine learning to spread their faith and gospel. JP, I'll ask you to describe how Harvest Christian Fellowship uses the AWS Elemental products and services in a few minutes. But first, perhaps you can speak about your role within Harvest and why Harvest considered complementing the services it provides its congregation with video.
I will. Thank you. Well, and thank you, for calling me JP. Since we had two Johns here, I thought I'd make it a little easier for us. That way you could call me. So everybody calls me JP for short in the organization. So absolutely. I thank you for the opportunity, first of all. I appreciate it. This is a great opportunity to talk a little bit about how we leverage and the complement of AWS technologies with our live and post-live activities. As a ministry, our Harvest Christian Fellowship, we have our weekly services and things that we do. And my role as the producer for Webcast Productions is to cover both the live and post-live or post-production activities on a weekly basis, as well as our large events, which could be the SoCal Harvest, Harvest America, and this year we're doing a new event in Boise, Idaho, so that's going to be the Harvest Boise Crusade event in May. So our connection with AWS live streaming actually started several years ago, and in particular, we started evaluating where some of the technologies coming out from a cloud perspective were going. We knew AWS was doing some things there in that space, and we were kind of using some different technologies within the AWS family of products and solutions online. We had also had, in 2016, had been acquired one of the Elemental live encoders, and that has become kind of our standard, if you will, of our encoders that we use for our live streaming. And then shortly thereafter, AWS acquired Elemental, and that kind of just further cemented or brought together that overall connection points for us to look at, leveraging services when it comes to transcoding, certain elastic transcoding services to other types of elements that pull together, if you will. So it's been a great opportunity for us. And AWS is a leader. We look at there's a lot of different players out there today, but in terms of a technology leadership position, AWS is right there, and they've been a great complement to help us and work as we kind of navigate, as we make changes internally at Harvest and where we want to go in terms of live delivery and post-live production work.
Great. Thanks for the background, JP. That's very impressive. Let's go ahead and jump in and find out what we'll be discussing today. So first, we'll begin by introducing you to some industry metrics you may or may not be aware of, prompting the adoption of media within religious organizations. Next, we'll be speaking about two major types of video streaming, live as well as VOD or video on demand. We'll follow that up with some conversation about artificial intelligence and machine learning and how we can enhance the video experience and simplify your video workflows. We'll wrap up with some resources, and then we'll open up the conversation for some Q&A. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I always like to start with the reasons religious organizations should even consider adopting streaming video. There's some pretty interesting metrics on here. The Barna Group conducted a survey of Christian youth and found that there was about a 60% drop in youth attendance to their churches during their 20s. And overall, the Pew Research Center noted a 12% decrease in Americans identifying as Christians. Why might that be? Again, the Barna Group found that we're spending about 9.5 times more hours per year on screen-driven media, such as tablets and our phones, than on spiritual content. That said, we believe that technology can also be the answer. Studies have shown that 84% of churches already have a website or a Facebook page, and about 60% of practicing Christian millennials already search for spiritual content online. As for video itself, 54% of Christian millennials already watch online videos about faith and spirituality. And generally, we know that about a fifth of viewers of streaming video content feel connected to the event they're watching. So video is providing a connection for both the general population and Christians and Christian youth in particular. And I like this quote from David Kinnaman of the Barna Group, which notes that a church's connection with millennials can be determined by how the church engages the digital domain, such as video and web content. With that, I want to pass it on to JP to talk about how video is transforming the church-going experience and many of the uses of video within the religious organizations.
Thanks, John. We look at the overall how's video and just the overall technology is transforming online church experience in the house of worship. And what we're going to look at my firsthand experience and what we do at Harvest. I think that for us as a whole, as in terms of a ministry and a church and what we're doing, is really trying to reach out and meeting the congregation where they're at. There are the millennials. There are a lot of changes that have taken place over the past decade. Obviously, it's very pervasive now to see smartphones all over the place, and we're all connected. We're listening to podcasts. We're listening to videos, and additionally, a lot of areas or elements of the millennials and other people within society as a whole are becoming more socially aware and integrated because of the technology. But the challenge when we look at in this particular slide here is that, in some ways technology can also pull away. And we need to be careful and deliberate in what we want to do, because while technology is a support in where we're going, and absolutely it helps us to refocus the attention, we want to make sure that we're connecting our online audience as they become introduced to Harvest or and being involved in the ministry. That's one area that we want to make sure that we're doing. The other avenue of a segment of our population is that are disabled or can't attend church physically. So it's important that we meet them where they're at when it comes to helping them connect with attending in a live service in real time, or once that live service is concluded, that we're providing that, making it convenient for them to watch it offline at a later time, either through the website or through some other source to be able to watch the archive. Secondly, we see also video as a tool to spread the gospel, right, in the digital realm. As churches become larger and you have multiple locations. For Harvest, as an example, we say we're one church, many locations. What we're saying is we're one church that has multiple locations, but at the same time, we also realize as part of the online church and digital realm is that a lot of those locations are beyond just the traditional location where those people may reside in the Southern California area. We have other people that are following along with us in other parts of the United States, or that could be around the world. For us, we see the technology of the digital component of this process, video and audio and everything, it kind of comes together to really kind of help communicate through multiple different areas of function or viewing capabilities. So that could be a smartphone, it could be the TV, a smart TV, it could be a set-top device box like an Amazon Fire Stick. The opportunity we have at Harvest with Pastor Greg Laurie and the Ministry of Harvest and our large events is to be able to have that leverage point, the tool, if you will, of what we're doing, and be able to communicate that through a wide variety or areas of delivery. And so that's kind of changed. As part of that, we've talked a little bit about that second component of spreading the gospel beyond existing locale, where traditionally, we back in the day, we used to watch, our TV channels. We had our program. We knew what time it's going to come on. We knew we could watch the rear or at a later time of that episode maybe. And so in the broadcasting world, where it's very traditional, it was kind of a specific process. The digital realm has really kind of opened the door, if you will, to us to access and deliver the content and the video delivery in a wider degree. Anytime you want to get access to it, you can. And so that's been a real change in how and what we do. And then the other part of that we look at too, is meeting the people where they're at, is those that are either hearing impaired or multilingual. As an example, for the hearing impaired, in 2019, we have, or within the industry, live streaming industry, there's a community called the Streaming West Conference. And one of the topics that came up was about captioning. How do we deliver quality captioning from an archive of an event to live delivery? And that's important to look at. And so one of the things that it's transforming, where technology comes back into what we're doing, is how do we deliver that? What does that look like? So technologies that Amazon has, transcribe, machine learning, things that we can take our content and do the offline type work that we need to do, but also look at what it would look like from a live delivery. And that also includes multilingual support. Here in California and across the US, our online church community or congregates come from a large and small cities, and some are non-English speaking communities. So that's another area of opportunity in the digital realm that we need to take and look at, okay, how do we take that content and bring that into play to provide localized language support? With Amazon and AWS Media Services, for Harvest, and what we're looking at how do we do that, and what does it look like? And so the good news is you're able to take the content, and through the technology that is being developed and now becoming much more mature, that you can now turn that into where not only is it serving your English speaking audience, but also your non-English speaking audience and those that are hearing impaired. So again, the digital component here is really giving you a lot of opportunity. And then finally, the deployment and cost, it rapidly is decreasing. As we look at Harvest, and for what we look at in particular, we look at two areas, and I think it's true for the live streaming community as a whole, and anybody that gets involved in this space, is the quality of service, the quality of experience. And so that's really important for us. And what we see with AWS is that we see technology costs decreasing and the opportunities increasing. So as technology becomes more mature, more prevalent, fairly straightforward to use, and once you start kind of get that into your workflow, your opportunities increase and your cost decreases, which is a good thing at the end of the day. And going into the next slide, we'll talk about the typical live versus VOD use cases. So, VOD, video on demand, there's a live component, and there's a on-demand component we call it webcast archive. If you look at this slide, there's the sermons, there's Bible studies, there's live events, and there's the TV channel. So, for Harvest, we conduct, we have multiple events occurring during the week. So we do our Bible studies, we have our Sunday service, we have a lot of things that are going on throughout the week from a broadcast and capture, and including those Bible study along with the live events. And then we're taking that on the video on demand side as we capture that from our video and sources and audio and the various teams that are involved from a tech arts perspective, and then we're capturing it and then making that available so that those that are either in the area that may be joining our part or participating in the Bible study, those that are outside the area, let's say outside the geography of California, that could be in Texas, it could be around the United States, it could be around the world. We've had a lot of people that will reach out to us and say, hey, we want to follow along with your Bible study, but we're not local to your church. Not a problem, right? We want to make that available to them as a resource, and so we can do that. At the same time, we can also look at, as we provide that content and make it available, we're delivering that not only on our website, but that could be on our Amazon Fire Stick. It could be on another set-top box. It could be through another source. So there's multiple sources as we capture this and we live stream it. We're also making it available. The other part of that, I would go on to the next phase of it, is saying there's a transcription and translation process. How are we going to transcribe that, make that more widely available to another set of an audience? And then there's user-generated content, right? And there's things that you look at from a user-generated and how that integrates. So while there's a lot of elements you see kind of going in play here in terms of the workflow, I think the good news is that a lot of what you're doing can be fed through, as an example, machine learning algorithms, or you can transcribe that for closed captioning needs. Our relationship with Amazon or AWS, and the teams and people we've worked with, I've been very pleased and thankful for just kind of things they're providing the tools, because when your resources are limited and you're trying to tackle certain avenues of delivery and support for the ministry, you really need a good, strong partner and somebody that's kind of a leader in that space. And certainly AWS has been one of those partnerships that we've been very thankful to have. On the next slide, video at a glance. So we've talked about the transformation of video, kind of where things are going. We've talked about live on demand. And when we talk about these terms, VOD, live streaming, webcast, it can kind of be a little bit confusing. So let's begin what we mean by live streaming, or video streaming in this case. Video streaming at its core is a fairly straightforward process you'll see on this particular screen, and that's the originating source where you're getting your feed from. That would be your video and audio and those things. And so it essentially starts with a high quality live camera feed or a pre-recorded file. You could be doing this from a mobile device, or when you're looking for higher level quality, a much more sophisticated, higher end, high resolution camera. And then as you take that process, we're going to take the source, the video and the audio and everything kind of at the originating source, and then move that into what we call the prep and the delivery. And that would be the Elemental Live or your Elemental Live encoder or a live encoder of some type. And then you're moving that on to the delivery via a CDN. So depending on your needs, some people have digital rights management. We talk a little bit about that, watermarking. As you look at live and post live activity, you kind of want to make sure that you're building out what's important for you. As we deliver all of this, we want to make sure that we're also working with a good, high quality delivery, CDN source. Amazon CloudFront is an example, right? We want to make sure that it's being delivered there. And that when it's delivered through the CDN, the Content Delivery Network, is that we're also looking at how we deliver that through to smartphones, tablet devices, smart TVs. Just as we package everything up and get there, we want to make sure that we're being very deliberate and wise with the resources that are provided to us in terms of our ministry and the people that support us at Harvest, that we're doing the right thing. We've spent a lot of time on this one, but I would certainly encourage anybody to make sure you're spending the right time to focus on that. So I'm going to hand it off to John and talk about the different deployment models.
Thanks, JP. There are a number of different ways to deploy a video streaming workflow, and we list a number of them here. So first and foremost, if you have the technical know-how, you can use existing building blocks to create workflows that are specific to your needs. AWS offers the AWS Media Services, along with hardware encoders that transcode, package, and deliver a video stream to the cloud. The process of packaging allows you to deliver via HLS or any other type of stream that certain devices can use. The second type of delivery is that you can use solution starter kits, and we'll be discussing some of those solutions available via AWS shortly. So these are templates that will allow you to create a live or VOD workflow with just one click of a button into your AWS console, for example. These workflows can be customized really in any manner that suits your needs thereafter. The third method is to rely on a technology partner. So AWS has several technology partners that have created end-to-end and often fully managed solutions that may suit your need, so that you don't have to build them from scratch. You can just use their solution. And then finally, you can hire a consulting partner, systems integrator, to actually create bespoke solutions based on your specific need or workflow. So with that, we'll take a look at a few of these options next. So let's take a look at two in particular. These are, again, called solution starter kits, or really what AWS calls CloudFormation templates. So we'll look at the live and then the VOD streaming on AWS solution. This first one, live streaming on AWS, is a solution that enables you to stream live video to any device using that CloudFormation template workflow. So again, if you're in the console and you look for this, all you have to do is click one button and you can deploy this entire workflow that you see on the screen into your AWS console. What it does is it takes a live stream from a camera source, as JP mentioned before, and it feeds an Elemental Media Live and Media Package service to both encode and package the videos into the right formats, and then delivers the the formatted video files into Amazon CloudFront for storage of that content and delivery to various devices. The net result is that you have an end-to-end real-time video delivery workflow that's resilient, that's scalable, and can be streamed worldwide. So this solution, if you already have a library of video assets, you've already pre-recorded that library, and you want to make it available for streaming on demand, you can use this video on demand on AWS solution. So very much like the live video on AWS, all you have to do, again, is click one button. It'll deploy this entire workflow. What it does is it takes as source files the videos as well as complementary metadata files, processes those videos for playback, again, on a wide range of devices, and it stores the transcoded media files and delivers them to CDN, such as Amazon CloudFront. You can customize the solution after you deploy it to customize it for your workflow. So JP, I know that you were involved in a number of deployments of live and on-demand video at Harvest. I'd love for you to talk about that in the next few slides.
Absolutely. At Harvest Christian Fellowship, we do anywhere from 8 to 9 broadcasts a week. And this is a combination of both our Sunday services and our Bible studies. And I think a challenge for us as a whole when I came into the organization some years back was we have limited resources. We have things that we're trying to look at. And there's the challenge of the infrastructure, right? As technology changes, as the hardware changes, as software changes, as all these things start to come into fruition, we have to look at, what we need to be able to support. And that's not only for our weekly services, but also for, and that's outside of our large events that we do that I mentioned before for our crusade events, but also for, just on a weekly basis. I think it's important that, we have to really kind of evaluate what the challenge is and how do we get there and what do we do. We have to look at maximizing the value and benefit so that we can scale and can provide reliability. So I would say that with AWS, we've been able to look at that, provide that accessibility in terms of the elemental live encoders to some of the AWS media services. So in terms of the workflow at Harvest Christian Fellowship, there's a lot of moving components within this. And as John talked about, the key source that is video. And so what you'll see in the beginning start here of the workflow is, in this blueprint, is you'll see between our Riverside campus and other campuses, we have 2 broadcast campuses. So that allows us to take and to capture both the sermon or the Sunday service, a message by Pastor Greg Laurie, or the Bible study messages that we might do during the week. Run that through the elemental live encoder, going into the encoder. And then we have another vendor that we work with, StreamMonkey, started working with over the past year, starting in 2019, and actually before that, I would say even about a year before that, where it allowed us then to take our content and not only stream live, but also have that available off of an Amazon S3 storage container, and that's stored there, and be able to also provide some other level services through our StreamMonkey relationship with as a not only a vendor but as a technology partner working with us, and deliver that through a CDN, and that can through multi-screen devices and other campuses. We have delivery that we have to do there as well. And then in addition to that, we have process that we do for capturing, and part of that, we talked a little bit about that, or I mentioned that before in a previous slide. Captioning is important for us. We want to address that need in the space. So that's an area that we've been working on, and how we deliver that and provide that and make that available. And that allows us then to, as we deliver those things, to really address an audience both from a glass to glass. We say glass to glass, and what we mean by that is we're going from, it could be a smart TV, it could be a smartphone, it could be, kind of from one point of glass to another, where the online congregate or church participant is watching the live service. We provide that, and then in addition to that, that also allows them to be viewing that through other media sources, and that could be YouTube, it could be Facebook, it could be Twitter. So there's a lot of, in this blueprint, kind of gives a picture a little bit of our workflow and what we need to do at a high level. So what's been the benefit for us? We'll jump in, and the benefit for us at Harvest, out of kind of pulling together a solution that provides us what we need to do today, and kind of have that long range view. And I would say that that's true for any organization. I think technology has provided a lot of great benefits over the past decade and even before that. But in particular, at Harvest, as I was mentioning about our the challenges we're facing in terms of the infrastructure and the benefits and things, is that aging infrastructure. And because the workflow and adoption to incorporate some of the AWS live services, the live encoder, and other elements, it's really provided the benefit of our core mission at Harvest. And our core mission in our ministry, and this is Pastor Greg Laurie, who's our senior pastor of the church, is to have the mission to know God and make him known. And with AWS, in terms of live and on-demand video streaming, has allowed us to fulfill that mission and to increase and make our ministry accessible to a multitude of devices from any location around the world. And I really think we're at an inflection point where innovation really helps spread the message of the gospel. And that's something that's core to what we do as a ministry in a church, and the people that we minister to, either whether it's at Harvest locally or online. And that's something that we're taking very, very seriously, and what we do from an online church perspective.
Thanks, JP. So I'm just going to highlight one other customer case study. Although if you're interested to learn about many other case studies and use cases for video streaming on the AWS platform, we'll go over some of those resources at the end of this presentation. So this other one for Trinity Broadcasting Network, some of you may have heard of them as TBN, is what is the largest religious television network in the world, and offers original programming as well as broadcasts of some of the leading religious content in the world, with over 30 broadcast networks worldwide. As with other broadcasters with traditional network capabilities, TBN wanted to deliver several of its broadcast channels over the top, or OTT, as you may have heard in the industry, across multiple platforms and devices. So that was the primary challenge that they had. As you can see from the workflow, they act very much like a traditional broadcaster. So they're getting live feeds or feeds from satellites, as well as primary and backup sources, which they manage via playout decks and routers, and they direct the feeds to two elemental live encoders. These encoders were employed to provide redundancy and backup from one another, and then they deliver adaptive bitrate or ABR transrated streams to various outputs, and you'll see those various outputs here. So there are outputs, HD outputs or high definition profiles to Vimeo's OTT service. There's one to Pluto TV service. Again, 4 ABR streams to Pluto's TV service for delivery to multi-screen devices such as Fire TV, iOS, Android devices, Roku devices. And then you'll also see a SD profile here that's being delivered to a third-party CDN, which is then picked up by the Glory Star satellite network for delivery to set-top boxes. That's primarily done so that it can be delivered to facilities where network connections may be fairly spotty. And the reason why TBN chose AWS was because of video quality. So from a video quality perspective, AWS provides a plethora of options, including video positioning and correction. It also allows for the origination of international satellite source feeds that may vary in terms of quality. And so the video quality capabilities of AWS elemental live encoders kind of mitigate some of that variability. Secondly, for reliability, so if you think about the high reliability that's required of broadcast channels and broadcast streams, it definitely meets the reliability quotient from an encoding perspective, and then being able to really provide encode logs that simplify troubleshooting as well as via monitoring alerts. And then third is really that flexibility and support. So TBN can easily manage the AWS Elemental live encoders from any device, but they can do so from mobile devices, which is very, very convenient. They were also able to lean on the support provided by the Elemental community, as well as the responsive support teams. Right. So with that, I also wanted to give you some insight into complementary machine learning services, which we believe are pertinent to video for religious organizations. So very quickly, the first one, these are CloudFormation templates, but this first one is one which JP mentioned is a capability that Harvest is considering, and really, frankly, any religious organization streaming video should consider. So this CloudFormation template is called the Live Streaming with Automatic MultiLanguage Subtitling. Pretty long title for a CloudFormation template, but what it really does provide you is a real-time subtitling solution for live streaming video that combines Amazon Transcribe, Amazon Translate, and a few other services to build this architecture that automatically generates multi-language subtitles for your live streaming videos. As with other CloudFormation templates, click once, deploy the entire solution, and you don't have to worry about the integration, and you can customize it accordingly. But the end result is what's interesting. It gives you the ability, or really gives your viewers the ability to turn on subtitles while they're watching a live stream, and then to really select the language in which they would like to see the subtitles shown. So if you have an audience that speaks, multiple languages, or a specific language that's not English, they can turn on subtitles, switch to that particular language, and be able to follow along with your sermon or Bible study or your live stream. We also have this available for on-demand as well, the file-based or on-demand video streaming. It looks like a sophisticated service, and it is. Normally costing, traditional captioning services normally costing dollars per minute, and this particular workflow, if you deploy it, costs pennies per minute, which is significantly less, which is great. This next workflow is called the media analysis solution, and what it does is it automates the recognition of persons or personas in videos, such as reverends, pastors, anyone that you have trained to recognize. So the metadata can be captured and repurposed for different purposes later, different uses later. So every video can be classified based on, again, the person is appearing in the video, or the number of times a word is mentioned, or a number of times an object appears in the video. These captured metadata can be used as keywords for search and other classification mechanisms in your content management solution. And again, it looks complicated. It can be deployed very, very easily with one click of a button, and you can customize it. Let's take a look at a customer case study using this particular solution. So Sky News is an example, and they deployed it together with a few partners for the royal wedding between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. So Sky wanted to provide some details on guests, some celebrity guests that were participating in the royal wedding. So it built a solution with partners in 3 months to deliver facial recognition capabilities, combined with some information about each guest while the guests are walking down the procession. The solution, how it worked, is it fed a live feed using an AWS Elemental encoder, contribution encoder, into Media Live, AWS Elemental Media Live, and Media Package for encoding and packaging, and CloudFront as a CDN. A partner, Gray Meta, in this case, used several AWS services to train, process, and recognize celebrities from the videos. And really the net result is users were engaged with the content, were engaged with the service, and they were not interrupted with the celebrity processions. That was great. Okay, so we've seen several different ways religious organizations can use video streaming to engage their audience, and also to expand their outreach to congregants across the world, to allow them to connect with ministries on devices that they currently use on their own time, and really anywhere from wherever they happen to be. And as you can see, you can deploy a workflow that suits your needs fairly quickly as a click of a button, really, into the AWS console with the CloudFormation templates, or you can work with partners who have solutions or can build a workflow for you that suits your needs. We want to give you a few resources to help you start that journey. So on the following few pages, you'll see this page, which provides you a couple of links. The Media for Religious Organization industry page provides several resources, such as the CloudFormation templates we spoke about. It also provides you a link to a solutions guide. We couldn't get to today because it's fairly extensive. A lot of content in there, including the customer case studies, including the CloudFormation templates, including partners and their capabilities. So do download that solutions guide when you have a chance. After this webinar, we'll also make sure that the webinar content is posted as a reference. And then you'll find also the case studies for Harvest, for Trinity Broadcasting Network, and others being added. And then on this page, you'll see links to the free solution kits I spoke about today. There's also a link to training on the AWS Elemental Media Services, which were referenced throughout the conversation today. And of course, should you have any questions or want to find out how to try the various solutions we spoke about today, feel free to contact us at this link, media-insidesales@amazon.com. That's media-insidesales@amazon.com. And with that, I'd like to open it up for any questions for a Q&A session. Feel free to put questions in the comment section or email us with questions you might have. And you see our emails posted here. The first question, and that question is, what would I need to get started? And how do you choose a partner? And John, I'll turn it over to you first.
Absolutely. So I think that, one question that keeps coming up more and more is how do I get started? And I would say, first and foremost, talk to AWS and other partners and other partners about your needs and have them, kind of help refine your video strategy. I think that's a good starting point. People think of technology as kind of a widget, and while that may be true to an extent, the needs of for all of us or for anybody that's getting into this process there needs to be strategy, and it's an orchestrated solution. I think that your technology strategy will undoubtedly evolve, but if you outgrow your technology, your partner needs to be able to be there to help you and help you innovate, and that's critical, especially with the amount of changes that happen in technology today. So, AWS is that partner for us as an example, right? And working with them is a proof of we're working with them on proof of concepts, expanding the accessibility of, for our audience that we've talked about. So, I think there's a lot of value when it comes to getting to that next step, but you need to have the right people in place to help you. Certainly AWS and the partners are a great starting point.
Great, John. And the only other thing I would add to that would be that you should make sure that your partner, whoever they may be, can scale with your growth, right? Growth of your audience. So, you might have a smallish audience right now at the get-go, but as you scale, and you might grow very, very quickly, ask your partner what their plan, what their strategy is to help you scale that content and ensure that your streams are reliable. So it's a quick question that you can quickly ask them about your reliability and the support for that scale and reliability of your service. Question number 2. Our organization has recorded several sermons already and would like to make them available. Is there an easy way to do that? And to that, I would say we talked about a few services. One easy solution that we talked about today is to deploy the video on demand on AWS CloudFormation template. And if you flip back to the resources page, you'll see a link to that particular CloudFormation template. Again, it looks complicated. It's very, very easy to deploy with just one click of a button. Sign up for a free AWS account today. Click on the VOD on AWS link in the resources section of this presentation, or you can email me for that information. I can provide you a link to that. JP, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think this is a great conversation, and I think another area is that it really depends on the needs of the church. For someone who needs to deploy a live streaming solution today, you can take a streaming Bible study as an example. It almost makes sense to me, and I think for any of us that kind of get started on some of these things, is to capture the sermon or the Bible study and post it and make it available after the event is completed. And what this does is this gives you time to understand and experiment with the process of what we've talked about today. And for those with more time and resources, absolutely partner with someone who has the expertise, whether it's AWS or that partnership is really critical. At the end of the day, consider what's important for you, right? And for your organization and what you're doing. For us at Harvest, we're always looking, kind of reviewing and evaluating. And for me, as an example, I'm always doing that, right? I think is review, and test to make sure, is this the right path? And as a ministry, and is this important? And as we do that, so there's YouTube is free and Facebook is free, but you have to consider what you're giving up. That's a good place to start if you want to expand and deliver to. You can take your content, upload, but I think one of the areas you have to kind of really is be deliberate and consider what's important. And as these services are free, you have to know what you're giving up, right? Especially when it comes to things we talk about monetization or other types of delivery, you really have to kind of work through that. So I think that, there's a lot of options, but you've got the time, and certainly if you take the time as you work through it, I think you'll get there.
Great. Thanks, JP. The third question is about the number of churches. So we have 3 churches in our organization, and we'd like to share our sermons, or it could be Bible studies. And how can we do that? JP, I know you guys looked into that as well.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of different opportunities today to be able to share your platform. We've talked a little bit about what we do at Harvest. So we've looked at that, several different avenues and how we make our messages available and how we share that. So our setup is at Harvest is taking, once the live service is completed, and capturing that and moving that over into where we post that and make that available on the website, make it available on Roku, Amazon Fire app, Apple TV. But in addition to, we've also looked at YouTube and Facebook. There's the cost savings as you look to post on these free platforms, and there is a cost savings. You want to make sure that you're always engaging. I think YouTube's a good start. Facebook's another one. They're free. They're easily available today. There's other platforms. Spend the time to research. And there's a lot of information available today to go out there and look at. So if anybody has questions, I'm happy to connect with them offline and point them to certain resources.
Great. Thank you for that. The fourth question, my church has limited resources and technical staff on hand. Are there service providers who can help us? So one easy resource is the AWS Partner Network. Just go to aws.amazon.com/partners, and there should be a link to find a partner. In the selection, specify media as the industry, which will help you zero in on partners who have solutions or experience deploying media solutions. JP, do you want to talk a little bit about your path in finding StreamMonkey as a technology partner?
Absolutely. So at Harvest, we had a number of people we're working with, including our CDN and other technology relationships we had over the years. What we're really trying to evaluate is where do we go to the next level? And then when I say the next level, what I'm specifically referring to, just as we talked today a little bit about AWS technologies and services, and those available through other technology vendors or partners out there that provide those services in addition to AWS, and working with them. StreamMonkey, we became aware of them through the Church IT Network, which is a kind of a forum, if you will, that a lot of churches can participate in, of other church IT people in that space. They were presenting and talking about what they do, and they had come out of their own experience from another church they had been involved with, of areas of ministries, in developing the StreamMonkey organization. So we want to get with a partner that's going to help us take us to the next level when it comes to going to Amazon S3 and those storage and those capabilities and other technologies that can be surfaced. We want to look at delivery when it comes to Roku or Amazon Fire and those areas from another strategy. Just overall functionality when it comes to the resource constraints that we're faced with, of streamlining the process from live capture to delivery, and even when we do need to post something from a capture and make that available. So StreamMonkey was kind of in this space, and so they've kind of are leveraging a lot of the Amazon technologies within their own infrastructure, and that was an advantage for us, and because of their background in churches and ministries. So it became a really good fit, an opportunity for us. They're also using BitMoven as a webcast player, so it's kind of this a solution, and we talked about that. There's a lot of widgets, a lot of different options out there, and for us, when we're evaluating our partnerships, we're looking at a solution. And for me, that's really, really important. So we found StreamMonkey through the network, and we started working with them. It's been a great relationship. We've enjoyed working with them, and they're very open. And that goes back to our point, finding the right resources, and obviously with AWS as well, has been a great part of our effort here as we go forward. So, and I really look at that very seriously. I tell a lot of people, just from my own personal experience in the technology industry, you can look at the relationships as a vendor, but at the end of the day, it's a technology partnership, right? Because they're helping support you and providing the expertise. So StreamMonkey, along with AWS and others, has been a tremendous help to us. So we've been very pleased with StreamMonkey, and they're leveraging a lot of the Amazon areas of the infrastructure, which is important for where we're going from a cloud technology.
Great. Thank you for that. This fifth question, could you speak about price? What about free services like YouTube? And I know we talked a little bit about YouTube just now. What I would say to that is cost is important, and I would say that it greatly depends on the maturity of the organization. People bring up services like YouTube a lot, but you have to ask yourself, what are you giving up with free services? Why exactly are they free? Sometimes there are ads associated with the free services, which you may or may not be able to control, or users may only be able to access your content using a set of devices or a limited set of devices, or there isn't support when the solution fails and you need troubleshooting. So these are hard and soft costs you need to consider. And I would say the other consideration is balancing video quality and control over the user experience. Do you have control over that experience and the video quality? JP, what has your experience been, and why would someone consider a vendor partner?
So that's a great question. I think you kind of hit it right on the nail, John. Is there is YouTube and there's Facebook, and there's a lot of things there. So why would you have a vendor? Why would you have another partnership? Well, you're right, kind of from a digital creator and from an ownership perspective, it does give you more ownership. When you use platforms like YouTube and Facebook and other mediums out there that are using for delivery, there's not only just support, but the other factor you have to consider, it's really important nowadays more than it had, copyright. If you have music, you have elements there that you're using for worship, that you're including as part of your content, that becomes an issue from a copyright coverage. And so when you have a vendor relationship like with StreamMonkey or working with AWS, or how you're housing and you're building that infrastructure, you can have more control. And if something doesn't work or there's an issue, you can get support. And we use YouTube, we use Facebook, we use all those, and we've worked with Twitter. But again, I can get certain support through the community, but that's it. If something breaks in my live stream with YouTube, there's limited resources. I think that's important that you have to really consider. Services support is critical, and I think that has to be one of the pillars, if you will, if you're looking at evaluating where you're making the investment in the ministry. So, while they're there and they're available and they're growing, I also believe that when you reach this point of maturity, and especially with music and other areas of content coverage, you want to make sure, and having with AWS, or in our case with StreamMonkey, it gives a little bit more ownership and support coverage that we need.
Perfect. The next question, my congregation has a lot of people speaking other languages. I'd like to reach them. Can you talk a bit more about how to do that? And JP, I'll let you start, since I know Harvest has been exploring that capability a bit recently.
Absolutely. So I think for Harvest, we're talking about right now, we're kind of evaluating that along with some of the AWS services with the machine learning and transcribe and localized language support. We are testing that out right now and doing some early testing, and it's been very positive. And you got to learn kind of a little bit of the steps. But I would say, as I learn, I would also say that AWS has been very supportive from the Elemental Live team, and even in the community, the Elemental Live community. has been elemental live services and stuff like that. We've been very pleased. So if I run into an area, so we're looking at that ourselves and doing proof of concept and evaluating, how would you do this? What would be the streamlined way of delivering this? And how does that service work? I think that, that's on the transcribing and captioning from a localized language support. Just the initial test that I've done and looked at, I think the technology is progressing very, very nicely. And I think a good place, I'm going to put it out there, I would start with AWS. I didn't spend some time getting to talk with, it's John or somebody else within the community of their team to really kind of help you evaluate what would best serve your congregation in terms of the delivery, whether it's a localized language support or the captioning.
Thanks, JP. And I would emphasize for anyone interested in automated transcription, that's captioning, and translation services, please do reach out to me. As mentioned earlier, we have pre-canned solutions, what we call CloudFormation templates, which really simplify the deployment of automated transcription and translation during both live and on-demand and streaming video. Of course, you can customize it to your own workflows. Check out the resources section of this presentation, which will direct you to that solution. I think we have time just for one last question. The question is, we're already streaming our services live, but the quality isn't the best, and we get drop signals all the time. What's going on? JP, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's quite a few factors that can come into play when quality isn't the best and you're getting drop signals. Harvest, we look at two elements: quality of service and quality of experience. So you're kind of hitting on a couple different avenues there. Quality of service kind of tends to lend towards the area of, are you dealing with latency? Is there something on your on-premise setup where your location may be? Is it the encoder? Is it your bit rate? We call ABR, adaptive bit rate ladder. Is there something occurring when it's encoding and transcoding during a live setup or even capturing? There's several different factors we look at. Key options, if you will, is number one, make sure your network infrastructure is clean and you're isolating your traffic when you're live streaming, especially when you get to that point. Capturing is not such a big deal, but when you're live streaming, you want to make sure you have a really solid network infrastructure or setup, and that's where latency can enter in. And so if there's a lot of pausing, or I call it the start-stop. If you think about connections, it's connecting, reconnecting with your CDN source, that can cause some problems there. It could be some of the sources could be involved in terms of the quality level. So making sure that you have the right AVR structure, make sure that the video source, everything there at your site is tested and ready to go. A lot of times in the webcast team on my end, we'll talk about for production, we always want to be in a ready status. Testing as much as possible is really critical to ensure that you minimize the risk and, I would say, stress when it comes to what you're doing locally. And your CDN partnerships, right? We've talked a little bit about that in the presentation today. I would say not all CDNs are created equal. So you have to make sure you're being very deliberate, doing the right research and doing the right level of setup with the CDN. So in terms of content delivery network, source is making sure that their infrastructure is set up, because ultimately it could be that the end user on the other end, and we call it there's the first mile, your connection to the CDN, and then we'll use the term the last mile, that is from the CDN or edge to the end user. It's the end user, it could be their network, it could be where they're connecting to the CDN source, and they may not be getting quality delivery. So there's that buffering or rebuffering can occur where generally what the end user is seeing is they're getting not enough content delivered in time. Therefore, they reach an endpoint and it pauses or it rebuffers. If you're getting a lot of what we call pixelization and things in terms of video quality levels at the end user level, the end user seeing, or maybe you're even seeing it's like, oh wow, looks kind of pixely. You want to make sure on your side, your quality, the encoder and everything, all of those things matter. Those are building blocks of the solution, are staged and ready to go cleanly, and that you have a good CDN partner. So there's a lot of elements there involved. So I would say, do your research, make sure you have a good partner, make sure you have the right pieces in place.
Great. Thanks for that, JP. And thank you very much for the time today to discuss your experience with deploying streaming video services. For those joining the webcast, we'll be making the webcast available after the presentation for rewatch, along with a PDF of the presentation itself. For those who asked a question and we couldn't get to them, we'll respond via email, so don't despair. And as noted above, you can contact me with any questions you might have, or JP, of course, through his email. And if you wanted to get started with video streaming today within your organization, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, have a good day and so long. Thank you. Bye-bye.